I want you to just stop whatever else you might be multitasking with right now.
Good luck with that, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
But just try to think about the absolute last time you had a single hour where absolutely no one needed anything from you.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's tough.
I mean, truly nothing, you know, not a partner asking what's for dinner, not a boss sending a quick Slack message, not a kid needing help with homework,
Right.
and not even that subtle, unspoken pressure to just be productive or pleasant or composed.
Yeah.
Just 60 uninterrupted minutes where you existed, and that was enough.
Which is, I mean, let's be honest, an increasingly rare experience for anyone.
Exactly. So if you are struggling to think of when that last happened,
Yeah.
you are definitely not alone.
No, not at all. We live in this ecosystem of constant demand. The idea of unclaimed time, like time that isn't already mortgaged to a responsibility or a societal expectation, it's almost an extinct concept for the average adult.
Yeah, you're constantly on the clock, even when you're technically off the clock.
Chris.
So today, for our deep dive, we are looking at the philosophy of a telehealth practice in Georgia that has actually built their entire clinical model around this exact deficit.
Which is such a unique approach.
Yeah, it really is. We are examining materials from Coping and Healing Counseling, or CHC. They serve all 159 counties in Georgia. But we aren't just reading a medical clinic's service menu today.
Right. The sources we're looking at are much more profound than that.
Yeah, they include this incredibly powerful, almost manifesto-style text from them that outlines their core philosophy on what a therapy hour should actually look and feel like. They're exploring this fascinating approach to mental health centered around what it actually means to take up space.
Taking up space, that phrase carries so much weight. I mean, it sounds incredibly simple on the surface, right?
Yeah, you'd think so.
But when you begin to dissect the psychology behind it, you realize how disruptive it is to the way most of us are conditioned to move through the world, especially for people who have been taught their whole lives to, shrink themselves, to make room for others.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through this CHC manifesto, it really strikes me just how abnormal it is in our modern lives to have a space completely devoid of external expectations.
It is entirely foreign.
The text points out that for so many people, the very concept of having an hour that belongs entirely to them feels completely alien.
Oh, it goes even deeper than just feeling foreign. For some, it actually triggers intense anxiety.
Wait, really?
Anxiety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The text specifically identifies who struggles with this the most. They mention Georgians who were raised to caretake, to minimize themselves, or to always stay composed.
Right.
When you look at the underlying psychology of caretaking, it's often a trauma response,
Mhm.
or at least a deeply ingrained survival mechanism.
Okay, that makes sense.
When your entire identity from childhood is built around anticipating the needs of others, like constantly reading the room, managing everyone's emotional comfort, the sudden absence of those demands doesn't feel relaxing. It feels terrifying.
Because the nervous system literally doesn't know how to power down.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
looking for the threat. I was thinking about this, and the best way I can describe that caretaker mindset is that it's like being a human shock absorber for everyone else's problems.
Oh, that's a brilliant analogy.
Your whole function is to take the impact of the bumps in the road, compress all that kinetic energy, and absorb it so that the rest of the car, like your family, your friends, your workplace, gets a smooth ride. You just absorb, absorb, absorb.
And to build on that analogy, think about what happens to a literal shock absorber if it never gets a break.
It breaks, right.
Exactly. A suspension system that never gets to decompress eventually blows out. The whole vehicle crashes.
Wow, yeah.
In psychological terms, the cognitive load of constantly absorbing that impact leads to severe burnout or depression or even physical illness. Therapy is supposed to be the mechanic's garage where the car is put on the lift and the suspension is finally allowed to decompress.
But I have to challenge this a bit.
Go for it.
Why is it so incredibly difficult for caretakers to just turn off that shock-absorbing instinct, even for an hour? Because the text gives us a list of what you're explicitly allowed to do in their sessions.
Right, the permission list.
Yeah, it says you are allowed to cry, you're allowed to laugh, you can say, I don't know, you can change your mind mid-sentence, repeat yourself, or even circle back to something from 3 weeks ago.
Which is huge.
But isn't that just venting? Like if you're just sitting in a session crying, being indecisive, repeating yourself, how does a therapist actually turn that messiness into clinical progress without guiding or grading you?
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of why that messiness heals. We have to look at how the brain processes social rejection.
Okay, how so?
Well, in daily life, if you say, I don't know at work, you might be seen as incompetent. If you
Uh,
change your mind mid-sentence during a serious argument with your partner, you're accused of being irrational.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Or if you repeat yourself, people just lose patience with you.
Exactly. And your brain's amygdala interprets those social penalties as a literal survival threat. So you learn to mask. You learn to perform efficiency.
Right. You learn to have the perfect, polished answer ready to go so you don't get penalized.
Precisely. So when CHC welcomes these messy, inefficient, deeply human behaviors, it provides what psychologists call a holding environment.
A holding environment. I like that.
Yeah, the clinical progress isn't necessarily about the therapist giving you a 10-step plan to fix your indecision. The progress happens because your nervous system finally experiences a space where making a mistake or being messy doesn't result in rejection.
Oh, wow.
Unlearning the fear of rejection is the clinical progress. It rewires the brain to understand that you are safe even when you aren't perfectly composed.
It's like you spent your whole life holding your breath and someone finally says, you know you can exhale here, right?
Yes.
But the muscle memory of holding your breath is so strong, you almost don't know how to let it out.
And because the real world actively punishes emotional messiness, people naturally bring that exact same muscle memory straight into the therapy room.
Yes, the dreaded performance anxiety of therapy,
It's so common.
which is something CHC actively tries to dismantle, right? They are very clear in this text about what therapy is not.
They are. The source outlines it very clearly. It says therapy is not a performance. It is not a test you can fail.
Thank goodness.
Right. And it is not a place where you need to have the right words ready. In this 1 hour, no one is measuring you, grading you, needing something from you, or waiting for you to fix it.
That sounds incredible.
To guarantee this environment, CHC trains its team of over 15 licensed Georgia clinicians, which includes licensed clinical social workers, professional counselors, and marriage and family therapists to hold that space. They do it with warmth, zero judgment, and genuine curiosity about who you are.
So what does this all mean? Because to me, treating therapy like a performance is just such a common trap.
Oh, definitely.
It's like showing up to a brutally hard final exam. Your palms are sweating. You've memorized all your talking points. You've rehearsed your symptoms in the waiting room so you sound articulate.
And very self-aware, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And then you sit down and you realize the teacher just wants to know how your day is going.
Yeah.
It's completely jarring. How does a patient actually begin to unlearn this deeply ingrained habit of performing for their therapist?
This raises an important question, and the answer is heavily tied to the specific makeup of the CHC staff mentioned in the source material.
Yeah.
The text explicitly describes their team as diverse and culturally competent.
Oh, that's really important.
It's vital because the pressure to perform, to stay composed, or to be the strong one isn't just an individual quirk. It's often inextricably linked to a person's cultural background.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
You aren't just unlearning your own habits. You're often fighting against generations of cultural rules.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. The rules for staying composed look very, very different depending on how and where you grew up or what your family dynamics were.
Think about the different cultural expectations people carry. In some cultures, discussing family issues outside the home is considered a deep betrayal.
Right.
In others, there's a heavy stigma around acknowledging mental health struggles at all. You might be expected to just pray about it or push through it or simply work harder. The armor you wear is custom built by your culture.
And if your therapist doesn't understand that specific armor, they might misinterpret your behavior.
Exactly.
They might think you're being resistant or stubborn, when really you're just being respectful according to your cultural norms.
That's the danger of a one-size-fits-all approach. When a practice emphasizes cultural competence across its team, it means the clinicians are equipped to understand why you are performing. They recognize the specific cultural weight you're carrying into that room. Dismantling the pressure to perform requires a therapist who truly understands those expectations and can basically communicate, I see the armor you're wearing, I understand why your culture taught you to wear it to survive, and I promise you don't need it for this next hour.
That genuine curiosity they mention in the text, it isn't just clinical, sterile curiosity.
No, it's human curiosity.
Right. They aren't looking at you as a puzzle to be solved or a broken machine to fix. They're looking at you as a person who just needs a safe place to put the heavy bags down for a minute.
That transition from a sterile, medicalized view of mental health to a warm, holding environment is a massive paradigm shift. It completely redefines the therapist from an authority figure grading your progress to a collaborative partner.
But, having this incredibly safe, emotionally accessible space is really only half the battle, right?
That's
I keep thinking about the exhaustion factor. If I am that overburdened caretaker, that human shock absorber, finding the actual literal time and resources to get to that safe space is a whole different mountain to climb.
logistics.
Exactly. Philosophy is useless if you can't actually access the clinic.
The logistics of mental health care are often the invisible wall keeping people out. So, how does CHC make this philosophically safe space physically and financially accessible?
How do they do it?
The text outlines a very comprehensive model. First, they are a 100% telehealth and fully HIPAA compliant model.
And they cover all 159 counties in Georgia, which is huge.
It really is.
We know how rural some parts of the state are and how sparse mental health resources can be once you get outside the major metro areas like Atlanta.
They are bridging a massive geographical gap. They offer individual, couples, family, and teen therapy for ages 13 and up, along with life coaching.
Wow, that's comprehensive.
And they aren't just dealing with light stress or minor life transitions. Their specialties include heavy, complex topics: anxiety, depression, trauma and PTSD, grief, and severe relationship issues.
So here's where it gets really interesting to me.
Okay.
The source text has this striking juxtaposition that I literally cannot stop thinking about. On one hand, you have a team of licensed professionals treating heavy, profound psychological burdens, trauma, PTSD, severe depression.
Right.
And on the other hand, the text specifically highlights that because it's a telehealth model, you can claim this therapy hour from your couch, from your car on a lunch break, or from your kitchen after the kids are asleep.
It's a vivid picture.
Think about that image. Processing deep, complex trauma while staring at the steering wheel of a parked sedan in a Wendy's parking lot. It's almost jarring, but it's also the reality of modern survival.
It is a profound image, and it highlights a critical reality about how our brains function under immense stress. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the intersection of temporal barriers, financial barriers, and the symptoms of mental illness itself.
Let's hear it.
Let's look at the financial piece first. The text notes that Medicaid patients have a $0 copay.
Wow.
And for major insurances, they list Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Humana sessions range from $10 to $40.
Which is incredibly low. I mean, that's less than a decent dinner out.
Exactly. Now, tie that financial accessibility back to the conditions they're treating. When someone is dealing with severe depression or PTSD, they often experience what's called executive dysfunction.
Executive dysfunction. What exactly is that?
It's when the brain's ability to plan, organize, and execute tasks becomes severely compromised. Finding a therapist, figuring out out-of-network billing, planning a commute, sitting in a waiting room, and driving back. That is a multi-step 3-hour process.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
For someone with executive dysfunction, planning a 3-hour round trip is neurologically impossible. The logistical friction becomes a symptom of the disease keeping them from the cure.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Going back to our shock absorber analogy,
Yeah.
the human shock absorber can't be away from the car for 3 hours.
No.
If they leave for that long, everything falls apart. They have to pick up the kids, they have to answer the Slack messages,
Yeah.
they have to make dinner.
The 100% telehealth model, combined with those low out-of-pocket costs and widespread insurance acceptance, bypasses that executive dysfunction entirely. It lowers the barrier to entry so much that the exhausted caretaker can actually step over it.
Right.
They don't have to hire a babysitter. They don't have to take a half day off work or explain to their boss why they're leaving. They can literally sit in their parked car on a lunch break, lock the doors, and for 60 minutes exist in a space where no one is asking them for anything.
That is just such a powerful way to frame it. The physical boundary of the car doors mirrors the emotional boundary of the therapy session.
Exactly. The logistics aren't just convenient. The logistics are the very thing that makes the philosophy possible in the real world.
Yeah, you can't tell someone, hey, you're allowed to take up space if they literally can't afford the space or if they have to travel 2 hours to get to it.
Exactly. By making it available on a couch, in a kitchen, or in a car, CHC is meeting the caretaker exactly where they are, at their most exhausted.
That's incredible.
And this is particularly crucial for the teenage demographic they serve.
Oh, right. They see kids 13 and older.
Right. They are extending this philosophy of talking up space to adolescents during a critical developmental window. The teenage years are often when the fawning response, The urge to please everyone to avoid conflict first gets hardwired into the brain.
That is so true. Middle school and high school are brutal for that.
Teaching a 14-year-old that they don't have to perform, that they are allowed to change their mind and say, I don't know, without facing a social penalty, it can fundamentally alter their psychological trajectory.
It's like preventative maintenance for the human shock absorber.
I love that.
Teaching them early that they don't have to take the impact of every single bump in the road.
A very apt way to put it. You are intervening before the suspension blows out. The overarching theme across all these sources is basically an invitation to lay down a burden you might not have even realized you were carrying, the burden of constant, exhausting performance.
Well, to summarize this deep dive for you, what CHC is doing with this model in Georgia isn't just offering a telehealth service.
Not all.
They are actively trying to engineer a system that bypasses the modern barriers to mental health care. The core value proposition of coping and healing counseling isn't just about clinical diagnosis or checking boxes on a medical chart.
It's much bigger.
It's an offering of pure, unadulterated space. If you spent your life making yourself small to accommodate others, if you were exhausted from being everyone else's shock absorber, and if you have never had a space that is completely, uninterruptedly yours, they have built a model designed specifically for you.
Beautifully said.
They've created the logistical and financial framework across all 159 Georgia counties to make sure you can access it, whether that's from your living room or a parked car. The source text is very clear on how to take them up on this. You can call them tomorrow at 404-832-0102.
Or visit them online.
Yep, you can visit cheattherapy.com or email them at support@cheattherapy.com.
As we close out, I want to leave you with a thought that expands on the philosophy we've explored today.
Share it.
We've talked at length about the profound neurological and emotional healing that can occur when an exhausted caretaker experiences just 1 hour a week of completely non-judgmental, unmeasured space in therapy.
Right.
But imagine for a moment extending that beyond the virtual walls of a clinic. What might happen to our daily relationships, to our homes, and to our communities if we learn to intentionally hold that exact same kind of warm, uninterrupted, non-performing space for the people in our own lives?
Wow. Something to really think about the next time you find yourself with 60 uninterrupted minutes, if you ever do.